there are companies which are already hacked and companies who don't already know that they're hacked.
But between these two poles, there's of course a ton. There's a spectrum, yeah. And it starts when you do something that seems like a nice shortcut, but maybe it's not. If I fall below that standard, then I'm negligent. In that case, I may be liable.
If something smells strange,
yes,
maybe it is strange. Hello, Arne. Today we are meeting here for another episode of our podcast, right? Detecting the Lawyer.
Where you are the techie
title currently.
You, Gregor, are the techie. I'm the lawyer.
That's true. So, and today I brought an example from the field, which I believe many of tech people already might know. So when you're, for example, a software developer or an admin or whatever, in contrast to, let me say, normal people in the company, like someone in accounting or HR, whatever, the tech people,
But you're an employee. That's the thing.
But that you're an employee,
yes.
like
so
everyone else
not
there.
Not a freelancer or anything, yes.
But you're a tech guy,
yes.
right? Who do, for example, software development. Usually those people, let me say, have some more power on their machines than other people to install software and stuff like that. Because we have to be honest, all the software development tools in those worlds are requiring somehow that you can install software on your own machine, because you cannot just install an IDE and that's it. They're always shipping own software with it, right? And the other software downloads another software, and so on and so forth. So that's just the case. You cannot do something against it. So that's just how it works, right?
Yes. And you need these degrees of freedom, I guess, in order to actually do your work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
And so this is just the case, right? So sometimes company try to do something against it, but then they're just always call it never worked out, right? So
and
it's just always the case.
Tech people hate it, I guess, if they try to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and because you just, as a software developer or admins or whatever, you just run then against walls. So because you cannot do your work, because the tools are built like this, so you just have to accept it. So, but now here comes the point. With great power comes also great responsibilities, right?
It
all
does.
Know this term.
It does.
So,
yes.
And sometimes it's very easy. So, for example, just right now focus on software development here, right? You are need a tool for something. So, for example, to process, for example, the styling file, whatever, and you have to download this file. So, and no one of your colleagues ever did this before. You are the first one who choose to use this file, this tool. And now assuming, and by the way, I see this already happening in the field, unfortunately, the tool does its job at this point of time. And around a half a year later, you see credentials of your company and also customers of you spreading into the free world. And then you find out that this tool, which you introduced at this point of time, doing harmful stuff to you and your company, and let me say, exposed so sensitive data to the free world, and obviously also to this hacker who was behind this tool at the end of the day, right? The point was that this tool was also just infected because some time before it worked somehow, but at this point of time, it was already aware to some other peoples in the world that this tool might be infected. So the point
sorry, apologies. You go.
So the point right now is, what I can have been done differently, or do I have, or I as the guy who chooses this tool, I'm somehow, let me call it like this, liable for something right now.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because indeed these cases do happen. I mean, there was the Kaseya hack, for example, like half a year or 2 years, 1 year ago, where something similar happened, and you had this centralized tool that was being hijacked, and there was encryption, I think, there, but it could have easily been used in the way you described to leak information into the wild. And this information, your example was credentials, I think, but it could also have been trade secrets or anything, of your employer, but also of the customers of the employer, which are two different cases in a way. It's a very interesting case because you got to give me some background on how often that happened, but I would assume as a lawyer that it's an interesting vector to gain. Not just for private actors, but also for state actors, and for industrial espionage to get all these very interesting and potentially valuable information. I mean, does that happen a lot? The things you mentioned.
I just heard from some secret researchers some years ago a funny saying. There are companies which are already hacked and companies who don't already know that they're hacked.
Okay.
So I would say
I get your point. So it is something that you expect to happen quite a lot to translate this into.
Yeah. So I would say so. The saying is a little bit extreme, but I don't know. But at the end of the day, I would say expect that you're an attacked surface which is which is worth to be hacked.
Yes.
And get hacked. So
you will be. Yes. Okay. I get it.
Yeah. So that's Let me.
Okay.
Yeah, phrase it like this.
There is a lot of, and of course this is no specific advice. This is just the general idea on how the law thinks on that. And we can go into the intricacies a bit. What's the liability of the company? What's the liability of that IT person, of that program, of that coder? And what's the liability of this coder towards the company and towards the customer of the company? Because it's a bit muddled here and gets complicated. But let's start with the easy thing.
Yeah.
Of course, if you install something on your machine that you know is being compromised, just to get it out of the way, that's of course a breach of all kinds of duties. You're liable. That's intent. Yeah. On the other side, if you do something that's perfectly industry standard, you did everything you could do that a reasonable person could do. You downloaded your app or your plugin from a reliable source, maybe from the website of the publisher or from a marketplace that is run by one of the big tech companies and is being vetted. And they again have all kinds of checks and virus scans for payload and all these kinds of things. And you have done everything you have to do. So you have secured your machine. You have a virus scanner. You use you don't circumvent the firewalls of your company. You follow all the standards.
Yeah.
So your conscience is perfectly clean. So then that's also okay. I mean, what would be any reason for you to be liable? But between these two poles, there's of course a ton. There's a spectrum, yeah. And it starts when you do something that seems like a nice shortcut, but maybe it's not. In my example, and maybe you can enlighten me a bit. Here, I know, for example, if you download an app on your phone, it's being recommended that you download the app only from the official app store because any other sources might be compromised. Is there something like that when it comes to developer plugins? Is there some shady places where you could download them, or how?
So I would say it's a little bit the same like also with Android apps. Let me focus a little bit on that, right? So this Play Store is observed by Google here.
Yes.
But in the past, we often also recognizes in the press cases where still there was stuff installed on smartphones, apps which were 1,000 times installed on Android smartphones, where still these apps do harmful stuff to their users. So the point is, I also would not say I can simply trust those stores all the time, unfortunately. But let me call it that way.
Yeah.
When you have something which is million time used, and from companies which are good known, right? Also in the stores. And that's also with, for example, software I download right from the internet, right? When there is a brand, so for example, like Microsoft just uses right now, or Apple or whatever, or Google. At least that when I go to Microsoft.com or Apple.com or Google.com, right, and download software directly from those sites, I sometimes can believe, okay, they might be checked because this company, so they have a brand, right? So that's important for them to don't harm users, because if this falls back to them, it's a problem for them, right? But if I download something from stranger site I never heard before.com, maybe I should be a little bit more careful. And the point is also with the brands from those stores, I should maybe do the same thing here, I believe.
Yeah, that was a bit my question. So indeed, of the shortcut, I wasn't just sure if you have if the same system applies here, but if that is the case, and I willfully already, just to start with, ignore the trusted source, and I use a not so trusted source, a bit of a shady source to download something because maybe I think it's a shortcut, it's something I don't find, it combines a few things that I would have otherwise to install separately. So maybe I already have quite a bit of wrongdoing here. Yeah? Maybe I didn't do anything intentionally. Obviously not. But maybe I'm in an area where I should have looked better into things. And then of course this you can probably go further here. You don't scan the software for viruses, for example, or you install the software and then all of a sudden you have some weird behavior of your system, but you don't follow up. You notice some weird traffic. Outgoing, ingoing traffic, or your system doesn't do what it should do, but you just close your eyes. You may have a ticker installed with all kinds of breach notices from the industry that says, okay, this tool is known to be breached. There's a zero-day exploit here. There's something happening there, but you just don't follow up on all these things. Yeah, and you see, if you combine that, we are creating a vector of negligence. Yeah. That gets worse and worse, basically. So you come from this very open, I have not done nothing wrong, towards this negligence vector, towards the something that orders to intent. Yeah. And the point is that this may be important, that this vector does not only appear. It's not a one-time thing. It's not, I have to download it and to scan it and then I'm safe. But then again, this idea of also looking at the market, at what happens there. Is there any notice? Is anything changes? Is something compromised? Is being reported? Having a look, having my ear basically on the ground, to hear what's happening there. That's very important. So and of course I don't have to be superhuman with all of that. I don't have to know something that nobody knows, but I just have to follow the standard procedures, the state of the art in a way. I have to do what is being required, what can be demanded from a good observing state of the art IT person. That is something I should do. And if I fall below that standard, then I'm negligent. In that case, I may be liable. And the interesting question is, let me ask that in your case, I assume it is a case that actually happened. These credentials that were being distributed or making known into the wild, that were leaking, were it credentials only of the employer or also of third parties, maybe customers of the employer?
Also of customers, unfortunately.
Yeah. So they could basically be attacked now, and their trade secrets could be downloaded. I guess their systems being compromised. Was that what's happened?
So let me call it that way. At this point of time, they changed all their credentials because they were exposed.
Yeah.
And they have already detected suspicious actions on their system. So.
Yeah. Fantastic. So let's assume, just for the sake of our case, that some trade secrets were lost. So in that case, you have the following the following issue. First of all, you have to ask yourself, am I, as the coder, the IT person who did that, am I liable towards my employer? And there's a lot of subtlety here. It depends on the degree of negligence, and it's also a bit different from country to country, and there may be cutoffs. It's all very interesting. But the second question, and this is, I guess, where you're coming from, is, am I liable towards that third party whose trade secrets were exposed? And if you did not observe the all the duties that you have, if you were negligent, yes, probably you are. That's the thing. You're probably liable, towards them. And trade secrets, as you know, the value of them can be measured in millions, in tens of millions, potentially in billions. Yeah? So there's a lot of liability that you may face. And there are some subtleties here. So depending on the national law, you may have a claim against your employer to hold you harmless against that claim. But that may or may not work. Maybe they are bankrupt. Yeah, maybe you are not. Yeah. So and simply just being dragged to court may be a very unpleasant experience for most people. And just to make that case, and I know I get now into storytelling mode, but there are a ton of cases in my personal practice, especially when it comes to copyrights or to other violations of personal rights, where if they are happening, for example, in an IT company, we had that in a web company, we also had it in publishing houses, where routinely we lawyers, just to spread a bit of fear and to make things interesting, to spice them up, we sent at least, let's talk about liability a bit later, but at least the cease and desist letters we do send to the company, to the person responsible, like the CTO, for example, or the CEO, and if we know, to the person, the concrete employee who was acting. So we will try to get them. It's not easy all of the time because you need inside knowledge to do who pressed that button or who did that. But we will, if we can, we will send the cease and desist letter to them as well. And again, typically it's an unpleasant experience, which is of course the case here, just to make that point. Yeah. The case is to make it unpleasant for everybody being involved, because then again, that's our job sometimes to be unpleasant. But we will do that. So it's a real thing, and whether that translates then to a court claim for monetary damages is another question. But there are many lines of defense where you may be shot at as the person who is literally responsible, in the sense of, I did that, I pressed that button, I installed that plugin, or I did not read that breach report, and you may be in the line of fire. Very unpleasant. Yes, very unpleasant.
At the end of the day, it sounds like, for me at least, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever I'm doing, I should always be curious enough if there might be something suspicious going on, and should research that beforehand. So whatever I do, right? So and although my knowledge about something is already, it's great, but maybe this knowledge is 2 years ago, it can already have so many changes in the meantime that I should always believe, okay, maybe there's something new. I should check beforehand. And again, for us tech people, there is something very great for that. So when there's a tool which I want to use right now, just open my favorite search engine, type in the name, and searching for maybe something suspicious might be going on there, or risk which might be involved there. And maybe also don't use the first site already. Maybe use 2-3 sites, whatever, because maybe the first one is always saying, yep, everything is great, but then the other 2 following sites says, yeah, that's very dangerous or whatever. But I believe so when I starting to use something new, especially always there, and also when I'm starting to use something after a certain amount of time again, maybe also just check myself again if there might be something going up right now with this tool, or libraries also, right? This can be also software components I use in my software can also maybe do something harmful. Yeah, so that's what I just hear here, right? So at least for myself, because I am also doing that way nowadays, right? That I always, okay, there's a tool, look up what can be a problem here. And what do you think about other things I can do?
Well, that's probably already the most important thing that, and you made that point very in a very interesting manner and very eloquently, that indeed there are all these tools that you can use, but with the possibility to use them also comes almost a duty to do so, because you can. It's so easy to do. So coming back to this idea, what would a normal state-of-the-art IT person do? Of course, they would look up these things just like you do. So you make the case for that. And that means, just a twisted idea, if you don't do that, that's already a negligence, because it's so easy to do and everybody does it. Everybody knows how to do it, so you should do that. So I think it's very important to keep this ear on the ground regarding all these developments. And then what can we do? Well, then again, try to follow all the state-of-the-art rules and procedures, and maybe also, and this is something I'm not sure if IT people are prone to that, maybe not, because they may be more austere than other people, but it's a problem with many non-IT people that put like hundreds and hundreds of apps on their phones and use only 5% of them. I would say don't overdo it. You only install what you do, lower the attack surface. And that's of course a tech tip, not a legal tip. But it may translate into a legal argument. I mean, I could easily see an argument in court saying, look, this guy installed just everything he could find on his machine, and he left so many doors open, so many vectors of attack, that in itself creates a negligence, because you basically open the barn door, as wide as you can of your machine. So I could see that being used. So I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to this thing where we come from, and we can kind of close the loop, observe the state of the art, and observe, it's very important, the current state of the art, not the state of the art of 2, 5, or 10 years ago. And we made that example when we kind of prepared a bit for this of certain encryption methods, SSL or so, that were perfectly okay 10 or 15 years ago. But today, if you use them, you would be right into negligence, because they would actually be, and this may be a resource, for example, there may be several recommendations from all kinds of authorities in Germany, for example, the BSI, the Federal Office for Information Security, that would strongly recommend against using it. And if you willfully ignore these recommendations, that's negligence already, so you have to keep yourself updated on that. And that's probably the best I can say. Follow these rules and procedures and recommendations, and you should be reasonably safe. Because, just to make that case, again, thinking like a lawyer here, if you can show that you read all these federal agency BSI recommendations and you follow them and that's what you did, you should be relatively safe. I mean, who could argue against that? That's authority there recommending you what to do.
Plus, maybe also putting up the point you also already mentioned, if something smells strange,
yes,
maybe it is strange.
Maybe it is strange, yes.
Yeah, so when we are just, for example, looking at the field when hacks or something like this happens, right? So the majority of the hacks don't happen because of broken software, something like that. Mm-hmm. The majority of the hacks happening because of it's so-called social engineering, right? Where where people using that people are so that other people are not that aufmerksam, attentionful.
So attentive, yes.
Attentive enough. Mm-hmm. So, for example, they see a page of their house bank.
Yes.
But don't take enough attention to that. The domain is not mygreatbank.com. It's mygreatbank. strange subdomain of strange country or whatever, and also don't care so much that the page doesn't look so perfectly like my home bank, but still click on submitting my credentials there. And the point is, software developers often think they are free of this risk, but they're also stepping several times into this. And I have to admit by myself, quite often also my browser shows me, hey, this file is strange, do you really want to use it? And I still keep click on keep, right? So but again, at this point of time, we should always be careful and say, but there's a good reason why the browser is saying it. So maybe in the most of the cases, the browser is too careful for us, right?
Yes.
But it has a good reason why the browser is doing this, and we should not just say, we learned it's okay, just click keep, right? So that should not be the way always.
But the err on the side of safety, that's the idea of the browser manufacturers, I guess. But that brings me to one thing, and I have to ask you. Maybe that's a topic you tell me for a separate podcast. I mean, when we talk about phishing and social engineering and these kind of things, and so far, I mean, as a tech person, you would probably have a duty to check the domain name, like if mybank.tv is suspicious, I mean, probably you would have to do that. But now we have AI, and we can spoof voices and maybe even videos, and we can have your CEO call you on a voice or maybe even on a video call that is a deep fake, and there's no way of telling. So there's whole new ways of social engineering possible to trick you into things. I mean, but then again, maybe this is something for another podcast where we discuss these things. From a technological perspective, because it's very interesting as a lawyer. What's possible today? I mean, which routes does it open? Where am I vulnerable these days? And can I believe anything that happens in 2023 and going forward? If I'm a juicy enough target, of course, that is.
So maybe already kind of a sneak peek here.
Yes, please do.
AI and all of this stuff have always issues.
Okay.
And the issue is they cannot know everything. So, and for example, the AI cannot know all of your personal history. So, when I believe, so when someone is telling me at the phone something very, very important, which is legally maybe very harmful, right?
Yeah.
When I interpret it wrong, I maybe can ask the person a question no one can know who really knows me. So, because then I'm on the safe side. Or if you're much better already, you can also arrange for such situations already some kind of passwords by yourself, right, between each of you, which the AI can't know or the hacker can't know, right? So because they can maybe just trained your voice from publicly available sources, right?
Yes.
But when you never publish this password somewhere, also in voice, you can also arrange on passwords, right? Then you're somehow on the safe side for now.
But I think that warrants a specific podcast installment, doesn't it? Should we do that next time?
Yeah, sounds great.
Fantastic. Do we have anything open here with our topic, or do you think we covered our ground?
I believe we covered our ground. Maybe we just wrap it up. Do you want to start with wrapping up?
Do I start? Of course. The wrapping up is, we thank everybody who made it to here. Thank you for doing that. And of course, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, and if you have to contribute anything, or if you have a question, or if you just want to let us know how great or not great this is also welcome. Put a comment in. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much too. And do not forget, what smells strange might be strange. With these words, it was a pleasure. See you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Ciao.